So that is why we're seeing tremendous number of people entering the mobile home park space. And the mobile home park business has become its own category of asset class. The institutional class owners are coming into this space because of what you just said. You just can't get the zoning. So that is very appealing to investors.
From cornfields to high-rises, office to industrial, houses to hotels, and every other asset class in real estate, we cover the people, the projects, and the profit. Welcome to the Investing in Iowa show. This show is for go-doers, action takers, and business owners. It's for people like you who are sick of Uncle Sam taking a huge bite of your apple. If you're looking to get ahead of what's taking place in Iowa, learn who is doing what, and how you can get in on the action, you're in the right place. Hosted by Neil Timmins, an Iowa native who has been involved in over $300 million in real estate right here in Iowa. Recording in studio from West Des Moines. Here's your host, Neil Timmins.
I've got Joanne Stevens here on the show. Joanne, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Neil.
I'm excited you're here. Say, for the audience's sake, who are you, where are you from, what do you do?
My name is Joanne Stevens. I'm from Cedar Rapids. Listed sell mobile home parks, and I'll talk more about that in a minute because I'm retiring from that. But I have two exciting young brokers that are taking over that business. And I also invest and operate mobile home parks. And I have a retail license. I sell a lot of mobile homes in the mobile home parks.
That is your wheelhouse. All right, so before we were going to dive real deep into that, tell me, how many years have you been doing this?
I've been doing, I've been listing and selling mobile home parks as a broker with NAI. I have a realty commercial since 2020 years. That's a long time. Thus, I'm retiring and turning the business over to two young guys, Mark Timmins, who you may know, great guy, and Jordan Bauslag. They are really taking to this business like a duck to water, like ducks to water.
All right, so take me back even further than 20 years ago. How did you find your way eventually getting into this business? And maybe before that one, where'd you grow up? From
Cedar Rapids. Yeah. Haven't gone very far in life. But in the early 80s, which was a terrible, terrible market, I'll probably be the oldest person, any of your listeners that listen to this interview, but not many people remember the farm crisis and the high interest rates because they either weren't born or they weren't investing then. But that was a tough market, in my view, tougher than the Great Recession. Terrible job market, interest rates to buy real estate anywhere from 12% to 18% and some even higher. So it was a tough market. So, of course, that's when I got my real estate license because I didn't know.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah. So, but looking back, I think it was a good thing because a lot of people were leaving the business. So it kind of created some opportunities for new young agents. So started in residential real estate. And then after a few years, I got into commercial real estate. And I was a single parent, young single parent. And I thought, well, if I'm in commercial, then I won't have open houses and I won't be on listing appointments at night and on the weekends.
More control of your time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my father was a contractor. And I think the way I sort of found my way into real estate, it was a general commercial real estate agent, did a ton of retail leasing, office leasing, industrial leasing, commercial building sales, a little bit of multifamily. And so after got on the CCIM track, and so one of my banks that I did business with said, hey, listen, we've got a mobile home park that we got back. So would you help us to sell it? And so I did the calculations, the financial analysis, and I thought, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but these numbers are wrong. But they're too good.
Too good to be true. Therefore, yes. They must be wrong.
Yes. What am I missing? Well, after a lot of, I'm into, trying to figure out what I was missing, I realized I wasn't missing anything, that the numbers were really pretty good. And this wasn't even a very good park, a lot of vacancy and not a good location, but the numbers were the best I'd seen at any property I'd sold. So that kind of turned the light bulb on. Not long after that, my father, who was a municipal utilities contractor, which is kind of a fancy way of saying he was a ditch digger. But if you look at in our state or the Midwest and really throughout the United States, who built most of these parks in the 1970s? Hardly anything got built in the 80s because of the terrible economy and the high interest rates. But in the 60s and 70s and even the 50s, and then again in the 90s, we had a bit of a resurgence of mobile home park building. It was guys like my father. He was a sewer and water main guy, but the concrete guys, the theory was, okay, or even farmers, I've got this piece of dirt. And so what I'll do is I'll start building parks or start building a park. And then when my guys have extra time, like a gap, I'll just go and pour some concrete, lay some sod, put some water lines and sewer lines. And back then there were a ton of retailers, like you could drive down pretty much every town of size, like Cedar Rapids had 3 or 4 retailers. Des Moines had a lot of retailers. The nice thing was that the mobile home park owner did not have to be involved in the sales of the homes. The retailers that were selling the homes, they always had home buyers for those lots that were so the home lots in the mobile home park were getting leased as quickly as they were built. So that's kind of a nice business model.
Yeah, well, it sounded like it was a perfect environment at the time for both the construction and then the sale, and neither party wanted to do both. They both coexisted very well.
Yes, they were. That's a good way to say it. They needed each other, so it was a good business. Then, my father said, well, the problem with his construction business was that the climate in Iowa, that he really always wanted a supplemental business. So if he and farming was always a sideline of his. So about this farm that was kind of in the pathway of growth. And so I helped him get it zoned, that's another podcast, which you don't want to do that podcast. But I do not recommend going to the cities I've zoned 3 parks in my life. I don't recommend it to anybody. It's very difficult, and it shouldn't be. It should be a no-brainer. You know how all the investors listening to this podcast, their local news is all about, gosh, we have affordable housing crisis. We need affordable housing. Well, mobile homes is not the total answer, but that could be an important part of the answer to how we solve affordable.
It's America's last stance at affordable housing, because alternative to that means government subsidies.
Yes.
Which means handouts again.
Yes.
Which creates a whole other host of challenges.
It does. And again, I'm old enough to see the results, how that played out when the government was building subsidized housing. And those are the places that were so poorly run that even the police were afraid to go into these government-owned properties. So that's not going to work. And so you would think that cities would just roll out the red carpet to anybody who would say, well, I want to build a mobile home park, but they don't. It's horrible. I did actually get a 200 site park zoned in the city of Des Moines. And do you know when I got my zoning for it after about 3 years of trying to get it through the city? On the courthouse steps in front of the Supreme Court, the city said, okay, well, we'll give it to you. And it shouldn't be that way.
No.
But that is, I don't think Des Moines is any different really than any city.
It's historically extremely challenging. Well, let's go down that path, and then I'll back up to some of the timeline. So I want to talk about the zoning, talk about the construction, because there's a uniqueness to this asset class. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall reading a couple years ago that talks about the number of units inside this asset class typically goes down on an annual basis, not up, like it would in apartments, like it would in some other asset class. We're actually reducing the amount of inventory that exists.
You are absolutely right, Neil, because what happens is it's very rare that some of these parks, we're on the edge of town, and that in an industrial park or next to an industrial, you're just kind of around the railroad tracks. Yeah. Well, the towns have grown up around them, so on the highways. And so one would think, well, there's a higher and better use for a mobile home park that was built along a highway that's now has a lot more traffic and on and on. No, it's extremely rare that there's a higher and better use than a mobile home park. But occasionally, I've seen maybe a few smaller, older parks where, well, the Walmart buys the property and develops it and says, hey, we're going to buy that mobile home park and take it out and sell it as a strip center or to a strip center developer or what have you. That is rare, but you're absolutely right. Sometimes, especially with the older parks that are small, as the homes they usually don't move out, occasionally they do, but as the homes become deteriorated and the park owner operator doesn't insist on the homeowner maintaining the home and keeping that as standard that is probably in the lease agreement, paint your home and so forth. Sometimes those you'll see some of these smaller parks close. And there's one in Des Moines right now that's on the market. I don't have the listing, but there's some water issues with the city of Des Moines and so forth that possibly could get. The homes are very, very old and in poor condition.
Yeah, that one's been well publicized.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Comes to mind. Yeah, when you don't pay your water bill, then everybody gets a notice that you got to move out because the water's getting turned off.
Yeah.
And it makes every news channel. Your ability to save that park is highly challenged.
Yeah. So it's very hard to develop or redevelop a park. So that would be an example of a park closing.
Yeah.
But that's a one-off. That doesn't happen hardly at all. But over time there is attrition.
Because the counter to that was we opened this with is getting a new one done and adding sites is extraordinarily challenging. Cities and municipalities all across the country, I use it in quotes, not in my backyard. They have a mental stigma associated with this. And if you actually went out and spent some time in some of these places, and there's no doubt there's two sides to the coin.
Yes.
But if you're going to go spend the time, energy, effort, and the capital associated with a new park, those things are incredible.
They're incredible. People love them. It's like a subdivision with a nice community building, like one would expect from a subdivision. They're very well operated. They have amenities like pools and walking paths. And most of the people that move into those homes, they intend for that to be their last home.
So if cities don't want them, are they getting done in the counties, or is it just doesn't happen anywhere?
It doesn't happen anywhere. The problem with the county, I think it's rare that the counties would get a zoning application, but the problem is that the city water and city sewer, the cost to extend. So that is why we're seeing tremendous number of people entering the mobile home park space. And the mobile home park business has become its own category of asset class. And when you have companies like Apollo and is it Blackstone or BlackRock? I have a
Blackstone at home, so it's got to be BlackRock.
But anyway, the institutional class owners are coming into this space because of what you just said. It's like, okay, it's not like apartments where there's going to be in Des Moines. How many apartments have been built in the last 3 years? Like thousands.
And more tomorrow.
More, yeah. So you just can't get the zoning. So that is very appealing to investors.
Well, Sam Zell saw this I think in the 90s.
Yes, yes.
Autobiography, by the way, if no one's read it. But and he made a fortune rolling these things up.
Yes, he did. He was very smart. He was just, he didn't really have a role model of, okay, this is how you do it. But he can, his math skills are pretty good, I think, or his arithmetic. You don't need too many math skills.
No.
It's kind of like eighth grade math to figure out, oh, wow, this is how you make money with these assets.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. There is tremendous institutional money that's in this asset class now. And they're not, what's the old saying in land, right? You hear it all the time from farm guys. They're not making any more of it. Well, they didn't make a lot of this to begin with, and they definitely aren't making any more of it. And these things produce, financial returns could be extremely attractive. You've got a built-in population, if you will. You got a segment of people who live here, and there is typically some room for rents to appreciate at or significantly better than inflation numbers.
Yes. Yeah, that is correct. And that's the other appeal. And what we're also seeing in the mobile home parks that I'm starting to notice in the apartments, but it's the pass-through of the utilities, such as the water, sewer, and trash. That started probably about 30 years ago when when a few owners started putting in separate water meters and sub-metering the water. And I believe that's happening in apartments too, where there's not sub-meters, to the apartments, but the owner's just taking the water bill and divvying it up.
Yeah, rubs in, inside
Mhm.
inside the asset, to be
Mhm.
able to capture that back, and
Mhm.
ultimately get people to reduce the usage, because if they're accountable
Yes.
for usage,
Yeah.
they do reduce, right? Which is, we want to talk about going green. People being
Yes.
accountable for their usage of utilities
Yes. I mean,
dramatically.
you would think that the city of Des Moines or all these cities, I know water is a huge issue.
Yes.
Just in the apartments, meter them. Hello. Or the mobile home parks where there is in Black Hawk County, Iowa, they, or the Cedar Falls and Waterloo, they submeter, the city puts the meter on the mobile homes. And they have a very cheerful attitude. And I've talked to them about, you guys, you realize other towns and cities don't do this? And they're like, well, no, I don't know why they wouldn't. But that would be a very good part of a solution of reducing water consumption.
Yep, there's no doubt about it.
Hey, Iowa investors, this is Ava Bautkamp, Chief of Staff at Legacy Impact Investors. Have you thought about adding real estate to your portfolio but don't have the time or desire to play landlord? At Legacy Impact Investors, we do the heavy lifting. Our team finds the deals, manages the properties, and handles all the day-to-day operations. Our select group of qualified investors co-invest with us, gaining ownership equity without opening a tenant email or responding to a maintenance call. They just share in the income, appreciation, and tax benefits. These opportunities aren't for everyone. They are for qualified, accredited investors only. If you want to learn more, please visit LegacyImpactInvestors.com to apply.
Okay, so we kind of jumped forward and just got right into the meat of mobile homes. So take me back. How long were you selling houses for before you made a transition into the commercial?
The commercial, about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the late 80s, I started doing a commercial.
And then eventually you get multiple commercial assets, multiple verticals, and then you find your way into the...
Yeah. So my father wanted to build this park, and my father, he only had he didn't even finish 8th grade, but he was one of these bigger than life people, really great guy. And so I helped him get the zoning for this 500 site park in Cedar Rapids. So I left commercial real estate for about 8 years to help him. My job was to get the zoning and then to fill the sites. And so I thought, well, how hard could it be? I'll knock this out in about 3 years. It took me 8 years to fill 500 sites.
Incredible. You're there fielding the calls, ultimately connecting with the dealers who they're the ones who source from the manufacturer, the mobile homes, to be able to get this done and get it lifted off the ground.
Yeah. And I had my own dealership too, but we worked with all the dealers, and more than ever since after I got done with that, with filling the park. I mean, everything I've done since then, I felt like I've been on vacation.
I believe you got a PhD in parks from that experience.
Yeah, I did learn a lot about parks and about the people who live in the parks and operating a park.
Talk to me about that, the people who live in the parks. So maybe we can get some color, because I think if people haven't been exposed to this asset class, there's a stigma, there's a thought to go, oh, I wonder what that's like, or here's what I think it's like. But maybe give it a little color to that.
Yes, Neil, I'm glad you asked that, because that is the problem with getting the zoning for the parks, is people think, okay, well, that's where you go to buy the drugs, and that's where the kids don't go to school, and people don't have teeth, and that's where they put their used appliances and furniture on their porch or yard. No, it's the people who live in parks are your teachers, your bankers, the bank tellers, the dental hygienists, people who work at Walmart, retail, and hospitality. And they're some of the finest, hardworking, kindest people you'd ever meet. Those people, their kids are very nice children. They do well in school, and they have hardworking parents. Also, a lot of times if parents do split up and they've owned a home, they can't afford 2 homes. So one or both parents will buy in a mobile home park. Also, people who are downsizing, and you probably have noticed how expensive it is to move into assisted living. Well, some empty nesters, when they sell their home, they don't want to go to assisted living. And so this is a good alternative to buying a mobile home park until such time as they need to go to assisted living. And so we have many immigrants who live in mobile home parks, not just mine, but you could interview anybody in any state and they'd say, yeah, the immigrants, we love immigrants. They're our best tenants. We have no issues with them for anything. They pay like clockwork. They don't disturb anyone. And so it is very fine people living in these communities.
Yeah, it's interesting when you go in and I'm in this business and so anytime I'm like, oh, there's a park, I just drive through it because I want to know what's going on from the asset standpoint anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how and the more time you spend in it, you're like, all these things I think I thought as a younger person with no exposure to it, I'm like, oh, that's untrue.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. An investor in the East Coast, whose company went public several years ago, Flagship Communities, he said, well, people move into mobile home parks because that's what they can afford. And some people stay because they like it. And then some people go on to buy a house. And for the real estate business or anybody who's in home building, feeder into that business are people living in mobile home parks and especially now I know we just had an interest rate cut, but it's so challenging to buy a home, even if you have a good job or a 2-income household, because homes have gone up, interest rates have gone up. So, we are seeing more people buy a mobile home in a mobile home park because they think, okay, I'm going to live here for a few years, save money, and then I'm going to buy a house, a real house. That's what.
Yeah, right.
But so it's good for the real estate business too.
No doubt that people cycle in through these things, but a huge percentage of people stay.
Yes,
They choose to stay. They choose to stay. Not that they have to stay. They choose to stay.
Yes,
And they like it.
they
right?
like it. Yeah, that is true. Neil, there aren't any facts about mortgages on mobile homes. I mean, there are a few more lenders than there used to be, but nobody's keeping these mortgages are not recorded. But it's believed that about half of the people living in mobile home parks have a free and clear mobile home.
Yeah.
So they maybe have more discretionary income to help their kids with school or just, I mean, if you drive through a mobile home park, especially when people are home, there's a lot of nice cars in these
Nice
parks.
cars. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, so I want to take it back, and then I'm just going to keep jostling back and forth between time frame and then keep going deeper into the parks that works with you. All right, so 8 years, you get your PhD, if you will, using quotes in the park, and then you're back into the brokerage space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what was that like? Because I can imagine you're in Cedar Rapids. You're like, all right, I'm going to be the broker who sells mobile home parks. That can't be a big niche inside a geographic area. So I suspect you withdrew the boundaries geographically.
Yeah. So what happened? We sold the park, and we had that was later, but once we got the park filled up, there wasn't really a role for me in the company.
Sure.
So, but I liked brokerage, and I thought, well, I'll just go back and do that. So, I had gotten to know some of the other owners, and there were these 3 fellas that they had bought a nice park at a foreclosure in Waterloo, Iowa. And but they wanted to retire and stuff. So they listed the park with me. And that was my first aha moment that, I had buyers from all over the Midwest and from the East Coast and the West Coast. And that was before, I can't remember if there was LoopNet or just how he was marketing. I don't remember. But that owner said, he had a real estate background too, Bob Wilson, super guy. And he said, well, I want to do an auction. I didn't, so he paid this fee to, I was going to do the marketing and get the word out, and he had an auctioneer. And so he paid the fee, and we started getting offers and people just driving in droves to the property to look at the property. By then I'd had quite a few real estate deals. I knew this is not normal. Usually you'd get a 6-month listing, right, and by month 6 when you had like no offers. So I kind of was like, I think this is, so what happened was the owner said, hey, listen, we're not going to have, he was getting offers. We were getting offers. And he said, I'm not going to do the auction. So he had to pay a big fee to cancel the auction, which he said, no problem. The buyer was a California buyer. They paid big bucks for it. We're happy to do it. They eventually decided to sell it, and a Canadian buyer bought it. And so I just went from there, and it was just like, wow.
So it sounds like it snowballed for you.
Yes.
Where you practice outside of Iowa?
Yes.
What does that look like geographically?
Geographically from Montana to Connecticut,
Okay.
but mostly in the Midwest, Neil. But, I get calls and what would happen is people, I had a family in Connecticut whose land that their builder father built the park on. And they said, listen, this land that we have the park on in Connecticut, do you know it was handed down through our family from King Charles in England? And
Oh.
it was kind of a history lesson
Yeah.
too. But anyway, so people would just hear about, the word just kind of got out like, who buys mobile home parks? People generally don't know. And why would they? But so that was my footprint.
It's a small world once you get into it, though.
It
in terms
is.
of who buys, right?
It's very small.
Being a female, a woman in this business, did that help you, hurt you? Never thought about it. I'm just curious. I mean, on the commercial brokerage side, it's dominated by men, and then I would just guess that the mobile home park world is probably like even more so, if that's possible.
Well, I don't know if it did or not. It's a very relationship business, but I don't remember actually thinking about this very much, but I'm not that smart of a person, but I did realize, if I sit around and think about poor me being a woman, it's going to be tougher. That would have really worked against me. But one time, one of my clients was introducing me to someone to work with who's, helping him buy parks. And he was like, oh my gosh, I just can't imagine what it would be like to be a woman in this business and on and on. And I was like, what are you talking about? I think it's like anything else. You just have to make up just don't think about that and just find the business.
It's always shocked me that there aren't more women inside commercial real estate because I think you said it. It is a relationship business. I actually think women are so much better actually at relationships and communication. If you were to survey how, men and women of the same age, how many friends do you have? Women have way more friends on average. So that's what I've always thought that was interesting to go, I don't know why either. I suspect that will change over a period of time.
Yeah, like it did for residential.
No doubt. Yeah. You're absolutely right about that over the years.
If you're a house flipper, execute the burst strategy or do double closings and are in need of money, Little Guy Loans is your go-to lender here in the Des Moines area. Time is money. Loan approvals in 24 hours. Closings in 5 days. Little Guy Loans was founded by Neil Timmins, an investor just like you. Since he has been in over 10,000 homes in Des Moines, there's never an appraisal. Houses, multifamily, and commercial property loans up to $1 million. Check out www.littleguyloans.com.
All right, so let's get into how do people actually make money in the mobile home park business. Let's say, somebody has no idea. They don't know anything about this. Now they're educated a little on what a park looks like. And, you're going to buy an existing one versus build one because that's not an option anymore. And the type of people on there, great. There are thumbs up about that. But how do you actually make money?
Yeah. Well, you have to just know just start with what's the income? What are the expenses? What's the bottom line? Okay, how much is that? That kind of gives you some guidance on what you should pay for the property and what your debt will be. And then the way you make money is you start looking at, is this the biggest way people have made money, Neil, is raising the rent to market, but doing it judiciously enough that you don't end up on the evening news. And also having the state legislators.
No doubt, because there are some parks that are, it certainly happens every year in every state. They are well under market rates. They have never, for whatever reason, the owner is happy and content or just doesn't keep up on where the market is.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, in certain parks, you could literally raise the rent 100%.
Yes.
Because it's that far under market where the market rate is.
Yes.
But as you said, you will find yourself on the evening news and you will find your local and state legislature having deep conversations about new regulation, about what should happen inside this industry.
Yes. So we can't have that. And my experience with owners is that some of them live in the town. Some of them even live next door, even in the park. So they don't want to they stop maintaining the property because they probably have in their head 5 or 10 years before they sell, I'm going to sell this place. So I'm not going to do much with the roads or anything. Just keep it cobbled together and let the next guy trim the trees and replace some of these electric pedestals and so on. And so for that reason, it's harder to raise rent because when you're not doing anything, and also their tenants do complain to them, and they just for some reason they don't want that. It's kind of odd, but because when these rates lot rents do go up, nobody moves out. With the new owners, nobody moves. Owners tell me they don't get hardly any complaints, even if it goes up 50% in a couple of years or whatever it is. But anyway, that's kind of what happens, why it's so under market.
Let's go back to how people make money. Let's talk about the revenue streams. The big revenue stream is lot rent.
Yes.
So let's just talk about that just a little so people understand that, and then maybe the mobile home itself and the revenue stream for there, because that can go a couple different ways.
So just make sure that you do a market rent survey to find out what is the market rent, and then make a plan to get to market rent over 2 to 3 to 5 years. The other thing is passing through the utilities, whether it's a RUB system where you just take the bill and divvy it up between all of the tenants, and some do it give people a monthly statement. Here's your rent and here's your water. And some do it every year. Here's the water charge. We're going to evaluate at the end of the year, and you'll have your new water charge along with your new rent. Garbage is being passed through to the tenants also. And the tenants do pay their gas and electric and internet and cable and so forth. So that's raising the rent, passing through the utilities are the main things. Being really strict about rent collections, my recommendation is get an attorney involved. Don't do your own evictions. Just come down on people. I get a ton of bricks. Don't pay. And the thing about mobile home parks is that kind of strictness, firmness with paying rent. People see that. They know that, okay, we got to pay or we're going to get evicted. So once you do a few evictions, people kind of get the message that we got to pay.
Pay or you can't stay.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing would be if there's vacant lots, bring in homes, either used homes or new homes, and sell or rent those homes. And that will, an owner in the Twin Cities who's been wildly successful that started with a few dollars. He grew up on a farm, didn't have any money, started with basically nothing. He said, this business is about getting that rent machine going. Yeah. So all the vacant lots, whatever you have to do to bring in a home.
Has that gotten harder since on the backside of COVID?
To buy homes?
To buy used homes and bring them in. Or even new ones as a result of COVID and to getting material and supplies through that would go into the construction thereof.
Yeah. So during COVID, the demand was very high for mobile homes because people wanted to move out of apartments and have their own space because they were worried about, well, what is the return air exchange in an apartment property? Is everybody's breathing the air getting recirculated? I don't know. I never heard anything about if that actually happened, but the prices for the mobile homes, it was like $90,000 to buy a very, just kind of a medium-sized plain Jane mobile home from the factory. That doesn't really work in a lot of parks, but it does if you rent the home, amortize the cost down a little bit through rent, and then sell the home. The demand for, I would say in this market, the Des Moines market, probably the average rent on just the home, not counting the lot rent, is probably between $500 and $600, and then $500 or $600 for lot rent. So about $1,200. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the paths for that home are, if someone decides they want to buy one of these, it's either to buy it. You go to a manufacturer, you're going to buy a new one. Typically, those will get placed in a nicer, newer part because you already spent $100,000 plus buying a new mobile home, or you're going to buy an existing one inside of a park. All right, so you buy one inside the existing park, or you're going to rent one inside of the existing park. The back side of that is there's an investor.
Yes.
There's an investor who has acquired this mobile home and they're going to rent them out because that's their business plan, or they've acquired it and they're going to sell it on contract.
Yes.
Talk to me a little about that. Maybe the evolution of that contract sale over a period of time.
Yes. So back in the day, I think this might have been in the 1970s. There was a guy named Lonnie, and there's a book called Lonnie Deals. And his business model was, I'm going to buy the mobile homes in the park. I'm going to, I don't think he was kind of an HGTV quality fixer-upper flipper guy.
Sure.
I think, just basically get it clean and habitable and sell it on contract. He did not do rentals, but I think you can probably go on Amazon or something and find Lonnie deals. There's a book, and that was his model. And other people have followed that model, and it's helped them to get a stake to buy a mobile home park just by buying and selling the homes on
just
contract.
by flipping homes, selling them on contract, you creating a spread, creating an interest line there.
Yes.
And somebody moves out, you just go do it again.
Yep, exactly. There's, and that's how they've made a great deal of money, because they're not as regulated as what they can charge for interest, and the demand is so high. And just like I think in this country, we're almost sort of hardwired that it's better to own your home than to rent. Mobile home parks are no different. These people, they want to own something.
Yeah.
If given the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. They want to own that home, take ownership, and the owner of the park wants them to own the home.
Yes.
Those who do this at scale, because they do take greater pride than a tenant does in maintaining that property. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that a little. When it comes to the brokerage side of the business, if you had 100-unit park, ideally, what percentage of that park are park-owned homes? What are buyers looking for? Where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, the sweet spot, well, it's evolved over the years, because years ago you could say, buyers would say, and no park-owned homes, there are only a few. And now it's kind of like, okay, no more than 20% or no more than 25%. So, and now I would say for many buyers, it's like, we're open to, and many mobile home park investors, to their credit, have learn the home side of the business, where if they do have a vacant site, they're very good at buying the home, bringing the home in, marketing the home, either to sell it or rent it, or they do rent to owns, lease with an option, that kind of thing.
Do they really want to do that, or were they just forced to find a solution?
They're forced to find a solution. The homes are not really a profit center. Nobody expects to get rich with the homes unless you have these big, they're not doing the big spread that a Lonnie dealer would do.
Sure.
So, because as you're bigger, there are more laws for the bigger operators with the interest rates than there are for an individual doing Lonnie deals.
Okay, I see. All right, so they bring those in. One of the things that I see, and I love your comment on this, one of the things that I have seen a number of times when you go out there and you go look at a park, is the broker and or the seller in combination, they want to market this like an apartment, meaning here's my rent that I get for my unit. It's $500 a month. It's $6,000 a year. And all of a sudden I'm going to put a cap rate on this. It's an 8 cap. And so my 6,000 at 8 cap, whatever that is, times 12 and a half. Before you know it, it's $75,000 a door to go buy these mobile homes that are 40 years old, because it's $500 a month in mobile home rent. I'm excluding the lot rent here.
Yeah. Because
they price these things like, somehow they underwrite it like it's an apartment, which it's not.
Exactly. Or like it's real estate, which it's not.
Yeah, correct. What is an appropriate, if somebody's going to go look at that, what's far more appropriate? What's more in line with to go, how do you evaluate that? One of these things sold on contract, or if they run them as rentals, how do you possibly evaluate that?
Yeah, it's sort of, there's a big spread depending on, with the contracts, usually there's an end date.
Yeah.
So you would really put a much higher capitalization rate, like maybe a 12 to 15% capitalization rate on the homes. If there's strictly rentals, sometimes they're not valued very highly, because they're really not. It does add more work. That's why, given the choice, investors do not wish to own the homes, but they do it because they sort of have to if they want to buy the park. So sometimes it's just, they're not valued very much. Really, they're not put in on a cap rate very often. They're looked at as, what is the value of the homes, and there just is not much value added to the price.
Yeah. Because somebody who has 30 of these and they run their own park, and all 30 are park owned and all 30 are rentals, they would disagree with us, I suspect, to go, these things are cash cows, which I can go, yeah, I can agree with to an extent. They probably have some very heavy maintenance line items associated with it. And then past that, you cannot scale that business.
That is correct.
You're not going to go buy 300 or 600 or 1,000 of these.
Yes.
I suspect that you've interacted and worked with a number of owners who literally own thousands of pets.
Yes. Yes.
And the ability to scale inside this business, from my limited knowledge, I'm curious about yours. It seems to be a lot easier if you can buy, but it seems to be the management structure is significantly easier than owning apartments.
Yes. Yes. Years ago, that is correct. People would come into our business from the apartment business and they would say, wow, this is a lot easier.
Correct. Right. When that thing breaks inside that unit, and it doesn't matter if it's an A class or a C class, things are breaking all the time. You don't get a call. It's not your unit. You don't own it.
Correct.
It does. Right. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
The maintenance can be, the return on investment is, renting a mobile home can seem pretty good, but when they move out, I mean, everything's gotten expensive. Labor's gotten more expensive. You're not really making a lot of, I've rehabbed many mobile homes, and there's very little money in it. It's not worth your time, but you do it because you have to. Yeah. The best thing you can do is find the fixer-uppers, which people who will buy a mobile home that's not in the best condition, they'll rehab it and they'll sell it. And then the mobile home park investor is out of it. And again, most of these fixer-upper people, they're immigrants. They do a good job. They get the job done. They're really plugged into their communities. They find a buyer like, wow, how did you do that? And they do a very good job on. Some of them are HGTV caliber people. Yeah.
What year did you buy your first park?
Wow. 1991.
91, you bought your first park. Okay. Were you still with your dad at the same time?
That was about the time we were just going through the zoning, and I actually did an exchange. I sold a duplex and thought, and I bought a park from the guy who built a park. It was a little park, and I owned it. I just sold it a few years ago. But I kind of learned the business from, just I was part of the family that owned it, but it's kind of like when you're your owner, and if something goes wrong, it's like, it's all on me.
Right. Yeah. And then kind of just snowballed from there. You bought parks over the years.
Mm-hmm.
You bought more in the 90s, I suspect.
I actually didn't. I was so busy, and I had young kids, and I just didn't have I knew I couldn't do it justice. So, but when we did actually, as a family, sold the property, I did start buying these parks on my own account. And most of those sales came from people I knew. The first park I bought was from a guy that I had his park listed, and then he got sick and we didn't get it sold. And then later on, he came to me and said, would you buy my park? And so really the parks that I bought have been from people that I've had relationships with.
Yeah. How'd you manage them?
I hired a manager to on-site manager, and then I had a regional property manager, and I just recently hired a third-party management company, Blank Family Communities, out of Michigan, to manage the properties.
How many do you have today?
I have 630 sites. Not a lot, but it's a lot if you do it.
I like how you say not a lot, because a lot of people are going to hear that and go, wow, I couldn't imagine ever having 630. But some of that is because I suspect you've brokered places with more than 630 in one location. Wow. Interesting. Knowing what you know now, what do you wish you would have known or done?
Neil, I wish I would have just started buying parks and skipped the infill, or I wish I had just bought more parks when I was, being a retailer with a large community to fill, you really don't have a lot of time to do hardly anything else. Yeah. So, but I wish when I got finished with that about around the year 2000, I wish I had partnered with people and just bought parks.
What are you most excited about as you look forward to next year, 2026? What are you most excited about?
That's a great question. I guess what I'm really excited about is now that I have a very good property management company, and I'm excited about the young brokers taking over the brokerage practice and introducing them to the players, and there's new players all the time. I'm excited to see the business continue to evolve and just more investors interested in getting into this business. I would say with my own parks, I'm trying to green them up. In other words, these cities like Des Moines and other places, stormwater is becoming a huge thing. There's a lot of things you can do in a park, whether it's some of the just getting away from so much mowing with grasses, ornamental grasses. I'm planting a lot of trees. My own personal mission is to plant 100 trees a year. But I would say the thing that I'm most excited about, Neil, is we have an injustice going on in this country with mobile homes in the mobile home parks. Most, as I was mentioning before, most people who live in a mobile home park, they're very fine people. They work, they pay their bills, their credit is good, they hang on to their jobs. And so some of them will buy a home. And when they sell their mobile home, they will have a down payment. I mean, that's always a challenge, is the down payment. And it is a tougher market to buy a home. So the problem is that the real estate industry, from the National Association of Realtors down to the local MLSs, and our state has seven or eight MLSs. Only 2 of those MLSs will accept a mobile home in a mobile home park. Now, they will accept co-ops, which is kind of the same. They market those all day long. And so I belong to the Iowa City Area Association of Realtors. But what I'm excited about is educating more MLSs that we ought to be listing these homes and accepting them into the MLS. Because to get into realtor.com, which is kind of where I'm not saying everybody should live in a mobile home park, but for people who are just starting out in life, or people who are empty nesters, or people who are single for whatever reason, a mobile home park can be a short-term or long-term housing solution. It's not fair that people who own a mobile home can't market their home like you or I could. I'm sure we would not be very happy if we could not put our homes on the MLS and on realtor.com.
Yeah, it was, I'm ballparking, about 2 years ago, the Des Moines Association of Realtors put together a rental task force, which I was a part of. The idea being, let's put rental properties, let's allow realtors to list rental properties and market them for lease. Does it mean that a realtor is going to make a profession out of listing rental properties? No. Maybe you could do that in Chicago. You're certainly not going to do it in Des Moines, I suspect. But it does mean that you may have a client who's got a property that maybe they need to rent it for whatever reason or another. Or maybe you've got a client moving in from out of state and that they've got to move here relatively quickly. They want to buy a house, but they can't make a decision that quickly, and they need to go to a rental. And you can help guide them to get them into a spot to then further turn around and then serve them on a sale. Well, the same thing may be true, exactly what you're saying, relative to if we work this as it's a step up product for someone.
Yes.
We can help guide somebody through the whole process.
They could end up being a client for life. They buy the mobile home, then they buy their first starter home, real estate, and so on. We're a nation of movers. We like owning homes and we like moving up. And it's not fair that somebody who owns a mobile home does not have the same access to the market to market their home and maximize their sale price that the rest of us do.
Yeah, it's simply a choice by the associations.
That is correct.
But there's nothing legally that would preclude anything from happening. Simply a choice.
Yes, correct.
Are you ready for the final 3 questions?
Yes.
If you had one piece of advice for your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
Build more, be better at building relationships and keeping relationships.
2 books that changed your life.
To Kill a Mockingbird and Soul on Ice.
If you were cast away on an island for a year, you could only get 3 pieces of data about your business each and every month. What 3 things must you know every month to know how your business is running?
The rent roll, the notices of violation, and the home sales report.
Well, I said it was the final 3, but I actually have a couple more. I asked you lots of questions here today. What's one question I did not ask that I should have asked?
Probably how people can what's the best way to get started?
All right, so let's talk about that. Yeah. I suppose it depends what they're coming out of. There's probably a couple of entry points into this business in there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Being a broker is for the brokers out there, it really helps you to learn the business, get to know the brokers, let them know what you're looking for, and find a partner. I think that was the mistake I made, is I should have partnered. I met some great people and also that would have been great partners, and it just didn't dawn on me that why would anybody partner with me? Because I didn't. So just do more sooner.
Yeah, to get exposure. Doesn't mean you have to go be in a park every day collecting, but you may be there from a syndication standpoint. You may be a
Yes.
limited partner from that standpoint.
Yes.
To be able to get exposure to the asset class and gain an understanding of what this asset is.
Yeah. So for anybody listening to this, just really think about, this isn't anything new that you haven't heard, but what do you know a lot about? And if you don't know a lot about maybe a category of real estate, well, then how can you just learn a lot quickly? Just immerse yourself in that. So I guess, even though I've made a ton of mistakes, a million mistakes, in this business, I really was immersed, thanks to my father in this business.
All right. I have to ask you, you are one of the classiest women I've ever met. I also, people, I mean, you're always sharply dressed. You're very articulate. Where did that come from in your life? Who was so influential in your life that helped shape you to the person you are today?
Well, my mother and father. Yeah. And probably the Catholic school nuns. They were very nice people, and they just were really firm with their kids.
Hats off. They've done a wonderful job. You are a class act. I appreciate you taking the time to connect and share so much. For people that want to find you, follow you, connect with you, where can they go? What should they do?
My email is Joanne Stevens at ivarealty.com.
Perfect. We'll put the details below in the show notes for anybody. Joanne, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Neil. It was fun.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the show, may I ask a favor of you? Naturally, subscribe so you never miss an episode. But would you rate and leave an honest written review on Apple Podcasts? It does a lot for us here at the show, and I appreciate reading your thoughts. Great guests make for a great show. If you know of another Iowan who would be a great guest, or you yourself have interest in being a guest, well, get on our radar. Visit Investing in Iowa to fill out an application or recommend a guest. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one, go to LegacyImpactInvestors.com. Click on the Invest With Us button in the top right corner, and there you can pick a time for the two of us to get on the calendar and connect. Until next time, keep investing in Iowa.